Welcome to Stuck in the Gravel. You're here with Daniel.
And Chloe.
Today we'll be discussing the second round of the Formula One season, held in Shanghai, China.
So, the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix. As the excitement continues to build, Formula One now turns its attention to the next stop on the calendar, the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix, at the Shanghai International Circuit. The first stop in the 2025 calendar, where we are able to say is a sprint weekend. Shanghai is known for its mix of high-speed straights and technical corners, which test both the driver's skill and the team's ability to balance the cars. The long back straight, followed by the hairpin, provides plenty of overtaking opportunities, but the narrow middle sector can be a real bottleneck for drivers trying to maintain a competitive pace. Historically, the Chinese Grand Prix has been full of surprises. Last year, Max Verstappen took the victory. The first ever Chinese F1 driver made a debut at home, and we can expect more fireworks this year as the teams prepare for another thrilling race.
So, how do you feel about the fact we're finally at a sprint weekend again?
Controversially, I quite enjoy them, to be fair. I think they just add something to the weekend a bit more, because if you think of having that excitement of, oh yay, 24 races a year, that's great, but if you've, like 2 years ago, how we had Max just constantly winning, he was great at racing, and he's like, what do you think about sprint weekend? Or about this being a sprint weekend?
So, for me, I personally would say that it's nice to have 6 chances in the season to spice it up a little bit. Now, we know that, okay, yes, it's one third of a full race distance, meaning that it is only around 100 kilometre race. And we know obviously the points are drop down massively.
Due to the regulations of how, F1's point system actually works. But I believe that it gives drivers something different to do. I think 3 1-hour practice sessions are a bit, after a bit of time it gets a bit like, which is the same thing over and over again. And I personally believe that maybe we could spice it up a bit, I mean, when sprints first came to F1, it was quite a nice thing to have, but it was the fact that the sprint race determined the actual race starting grid. So it was more so like, how did you do in sprint qualifying? In the sprint shootout, it was like, if you don't perform, there's no second chances. It's only about sprint race, and that's it. Obviously, this, it all got changed, and now we have one practice session like normal. Then we get thrown into a sprint qualifying that will set the grid for the sprint, which usually sprint races can be quite good. It's just, this is where these 2022 regulation of cars come in, how they can flow well and follow each other really well on the track, because without this, I'm not sure that the racing would be as good. But also I think that maybe we should find a way to spice up a bit more than it already actually is. But it is what it is. I kind of do think as well that what we should, add is maybe we should create a tyre maybe that's like a bit like a C6 tyre, where it's going to be like forcing them to make a stop. Now, I know it's a sprint to the end, but maybe it's something that could throw a spanner in the works and cause a bit of a nightmare. Because I feel we know that in F1, if you gain a lead and you've got the clean air, you could pretty much be gone. And it's all about how the pit stops go after that point. If we look back to 2023 with Max, that's all it was every race. So I'm glad that last year was able to get something different. And this year, obviously, what we've seen so far is we haven't actually seen the cars run at full performance in a race. Other than testing, where we actually saw what their race pace could be like, where it was dry. It's yet to see it where everyone's not actually sandbagging. But yeah,
I think in terms of sprint races, I think I quite like them because I think they break up the weekend a bit more. But they add a bit extra to the weekend as well. So I feel it doesn't matter as much how you perform in a sprint race, if that makes sense. As much as, yes, it can change championships and stuff, but I think your actual performance in a sprint race will not determine your, like, oh, Oscar doesn't do well. It doesn't mean he's not going to do well for the next race on the calendar, or I don't know, it's not going to be like, oh, now they've not got a chance. But I think over time the points start to add up, and it helps to, it shakes it up a bit, and it just makes it a bit more entertaining to watch. But I also think it makes for really good competition and stuff, because they're their own races. Like with the Sunday race, you need it to be really entertaining and really adrenaline filled and whoa, and lots of anticipation. But I think with the sprint race, it's not got to be as like, the teams don't have to run as tight of a ship of like driver swaps or like holding one driver back or anything like that. I think they just get to go for it, and I think it's quite nice to see.
Yeah. Now, I know it might be too early to consider this or even have any thoughts on this, but do you reckon we will see another moment like Qatar 2024 where Lando gives the place to Oscar? Now, I'm not saying this just in terms of just McLaren. Could we see it from anybody on the grid? Maybe trying to force a championship battle?
I think probably. I think the teams want the data. They want to see how far they can push a car, but they also want to see how far they can push the drivers. I think they want to see how well their drivers will cope under the stresses, to see if they'll crack and start making more mistakes, or if they'll hold and give up a really good fight. I think I'd expect that we'd see a lot more of it this season. Hope that we see a lot more of it, to be fair, because it's always great when you've got a proper title race.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Should we move on what to expect?
Yep.
Okay. So, what to expect? In terms of what we can expect, the battle between McLaren and Ferrari is expected to continue, with both teams being able to bring upgrades to the Shanghai circuit. Lando Norris will be looking to extend their lead in the championship. But don't count out Alex Albon, who has been on a hot streak and will be looking to capitalise on any form of mistakes.
The weather is always unpredictable in China, so the rain could play a big factor in the race weekend, potentially leading to more strategic surprises and exciting moments on track. But from what we can see with the weather, it will be a hot 27 degrees Celsius, and this could have an impact on how the tyres perform.
Now, let's move on to what teams will be bringing to the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix. McLaren have decided to bring a rear performance corner upgrade. V-Carb have decided to bring front wing and beam wing circuit spec in order to improve their performances at the track. Williams have brought a rear beam wing circuit spec, and KIC Studios have also brought a engine cover that is performance spec, hopefully making, the car somewhat lighter. Now, let's move on to the Did You Know section. The inaugural Chinese Grand Prix took place in 2004 at Shanghai International Circuit, with Bahrain also joining the calendar the very same year. The circuit layout is inspired by the Chinese character Shang, which means to ascend, and is also the origin of Shanghai's name. From 2004 to 2019, the Chinese GP was held for 16 straight seasons, with the Shanghai International Circuit holding Formula One's landmark 1000th race in 2019. That event would be the last F1 race in China until it returned in 2024. Formula One made its long-awaited return to China in 2024, marking the season's first weekend to feature the sprint format. Zhou Guanyu made history at the first race in 2024, becoming the first Chinese F1 driver to race their home GP. Now, I want to ask you, are you happy that China has come back to the calendar?
Because it means there's 24 races now instead. I think it's great, obviously, in terms of race numbers and stuff, because more action and stuff on the track.
Yep.
But I also think that, as we were talking about earlier, the tactical corners and high speed straights, I think it just makes for a proper, going back to as well talking about sprint race, I think it just makes for a great sprint race circuit.
Yep.
It's just what you'd expect, and it also makes for the great on track battles. And
yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, the 24 races, I'm glad that, there's 24 races. Obviously, maybe some shouldn't be in the same country, as the US have 3. But there's tracks out there like Hockenheim in Germany. There's the Nürburgring GP layout in Germany. There's the South Korean track. There's Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. All these tracks were very good, and I feel they should be able to find a way back onto the calendar. And we've just got to hope that one day they agree to it. Now, do you want to go back onto the Did You Know?
Yep. So, Lewis Hamilton dominates the record books in Shanghai, boasting 6 victories: 2008, 2011, 2014, 2015, 2017 and 2019. More than double of the wins of any other driver at the circuit. Mark Webber's 18th place grid position in 2011 is the furthest back a podium finish has come at the Shanghai, making it an impressive recovery of 15 positions to secure a spot on the podium. Michael Schumacher's first 2 Chinese Grand Prix visits were tough, with a 12th place finish in 2004 and a pre-race collision followed by a spin later in the race in 2005. But he bounced back in 2006, securing his 91st and final F1 victory. Ferrari lead the way for podium finishes in Shanghai, with 13, closely followed by Mercedes, who have 12. The race lap record was set by Michael Schumacher back in 2004, with the Ferrari 2004 setting a lap time of 1 minute 32 seconds and 2 tenths.
Now, on to predictions. Go on.
So I think that the pole position will go to Lando Norris. Pretty self-explanatory, I feel, that one. He's very quick and showing a lot of skill with qualifyings. Sprint winner, Lewis Hamilton. That one's a bit 50-50 at the moment, I think, as we've seen from practices and from last weekend. I think it's more so a hope. I hope that he's going to win it. But I also know that he might not, and that's fair enough. I think the F1 winner will be Oscar Piastri. Yet again, that's a bit more of a hope one. I'm hoping that Oscar's going to hopefully get some more wins as well. Maybe even be in it for the Drivers' Championship. I think he's a great racer and just very aggressive not aggressive in terms of
Not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way, but he will fight for a place and he will, as he showed last week, he won't take a loss easily. I think that Mayovu is going to win the race 1 of F1 Academy, and Dorian Pin is going to win race 2.
So, for me, I believe that Lando Norris will be on pole, and as Chloe explained, it is pretty self-explanatory. It's more so the guy with his 1 lap pace is if he can hook up a lap, it is something that people should be scared of. But there's plenty of other drivers on the grid, I feel, that have got good 1 lap pace. Charles, Hamilton, Max. I mean, even Oscar sometimes, it depends. But obviously, for me, he doesn't treat his tyres well throughout the lap. I think he burns them too fast. My sprint winner, I've gone with Max Verstappen because I think that maybe it's about time that he proved himself last weekend that he could finish second, but it's just a case of whether he can hook the lap up to begin with, and that car will eventually come back into his hands and he will be, somewhat there. I think my race winner has to be Lando Norris because I think if he puts it onto pole, he's going to continue with the clean air. Dry race, clean air, fastest car when it comes to race pace, as what we've seen. It all depends on where Oscar can put it, in my opinion. Maybe the Ferraris can catch up, I'm not sure. It all depends on how they perform. But talking about Ferrari, they're one of their academy drivers in F1 Academy, Maya Vug. I believe that she will win the first race. And I believe that also Chloe Chambers will win the second race.
So, thank you for tuning into our podcast.
I've been Dan.
And I've been Chloe, and this is Stuck in the Gravel.
The voice of a new generation.
This is KIC Radio.